Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10. You know the Twitter handle by now. And I'm joined today, as always, by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Not bad, Tony. I all rested and refreshed after a rare day off yesterday.
A rare day off indeed, Sean. Did you enjoy it? I hope you did.
I did, I always do. I took my wife and daughter out for lunch. Nice wee relaxed afternoon.
Excellent. And I didn't burst your hump with all sorts of questions, or I tried not to, let's put it that way, as I usually do. But there we are. Now, guys, as you can see running along the bottom, we've always got a deal for you or an offer. You can subscribe for £1 a month for full access. You can see the pods and you can read all the wonderful stuff that's on the site. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button and join us, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, Sean, Celtic never sleeps, we never stop, and all that. But yesterday, there was we want to make it clear that it's we are kind of responding to reports that have emanated about James McCarthy and saying that the player could be seeking an exit from Celtic. Now, we wanted to open it up to a bigger and wider conversation, Sean, but I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think about that, and not necessarily will it go, but the kind of wider picture. Does it all make sense? Does the arrival of Aaron Moy push him down further down any kind of pecking order? Were you surprised that Celtic signed James McCarthy, the length of deal, all that kind of stuff? But just wanted to gather your thoughts on all of that.
Well, strap yourself in, Tony, because I could go on a wee bit. Tell me if I'm what.
No, you're all right. I'm all for
that. I mean, I essentially agree with Brian's comment here that it doesn't fit Andrew's style. So for his sake as well, it makes sense to go. But I mean, we've spoken about McCarthy more than a few times this summer and before that, Tony. And I don't think my views ever really changed, albeit I did try to find a potential silver lining in it during the summer, if you remember. But to kind of reiterate, I suppose, before he arrived, right, there was quite a lot of talk about the kind of leg break and that he suffered down south, and that tended to take centre stage in terms of injury talk. But when you actually look at his injury record, it was soft tissue stuff that was a consistent problem. I mean, when he went to Crystal Palace, he played virtually a full season, I think 2019-20. Obviously, that season was curtailed, but he played virtually the full season. And then in 2020-21, it was kind of sporadic. And again, he spent time out with a hamstring issue, which is obviously soft tissue stuff again, kind of thing. That's when it kind of becomes odd, because that's when Celtic stepped in and gave him a 4-season deal. Yeah. So that I think that pretty much everybody was perplexed at that. I don't remember anybody thinking that is a sensible option. For Celtic, though, he's been available. He's been included in 45 matchday squads. Tony, I had this conversation on Twitter the other day. A regular kind of interactor on Twitter says that he doesn't think he'll make five league matchday squads. And I was saying that's a bold prediction because he was actually in a lot of squads. He just didn't play a lot. I think it was 800, just under 850 minutes across the season that he got, despite being in 45 matchday squads. So 45 matchday squads, but the equivalent of about 9 matches, if you know what I mean. Most of them, obviously.
And you have to rely on you, Sean, Statman, Sean. Statman, yeah.
Rapid fast like Tommy gun.
Keep going, come on.
Most of them weren't full 90s, Tony. That's got to be said. So it's hard to get into the groove if you're just coming off the bench and stuff like that. But and that does factor that into how well you get in the groove. But it still speaks to what I keep saying, and essentially what Brian said there, that it's not unavailability, it's been unsuitability.
Yes.
So I mean, he's a tackling ball winner essentially at his core, and he's in a team that overwhelmingly dominates the ball and then wins it back by kind of swarming and intercepting rather than just going through people. So I think Brian's comment that I put up, I just fundamentally that's where I stand on it. I don't think it suits what is trying to be done in that midfield.
The wider argument was, Sean, at the time that this was not an Ange Postecoglou signing. Now, nobody can say that for definite, can they?
No.
You know, but Michael McDonald saying not an Ange signing, wish him all the best. Nobody's really come out and said that. Jerry D probably would have fitted the previous team. He doesn't work with Ange. Now, the player is undoubtedly talented. and has proved it down south. And he's a bona fide Celtic supporter whose dream was always to play for Celtic. But is it a case of, Sean, maybe the right player at the wrong time? The retro Celtic saying it's still a mystery as to why we signed McCarthy. And that's kind of borne out in the fact that he's only played so many minutes, as you say. Robert Kennedy or McCarthy realised he went to the first team. And the signing of Aaron Moy also, for me, sort of shoves him further down any pecking order if he was really featuring in it at all.
I agree with you. I think it does. I think just even, and you talk about his game, and as I say, unsuitability, it doesn't have very good off the ball movement for a central midfielder. I don't think. I think you can tell that he's, and I agree with you. He is actually. He's a very good midfielder. He will make a good midfielder for someone else, I think. But he's kind of spent his career at like Hamilton, Wigan, Everton, Crystal Palace. Was it West Brom as well? I can't remember if it was West Brom, but regardless, teams that don't exactly play the way that Celtic play, if you know what I mean. Even Ireland at international level, a lot of time it was under Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane's tenure. He suits that type of team, and it's not Celtic, if you know what I mean. He's not that type of player, and it's no harm to him. I do think he will do a job for other teams. But I agree with you. I think he's one further down the pecking order for game time with Aaron Moy, because he can cover the 6 and the 8. And you saw the first day of the season there, he was in the squad, Aaron Moy, and got game time. I mean, even cast your mind back to last season, Tony. Not long after McCarthy had come in the door, and obviously Ange Postecoglou hadn't got off to the best of starts results-wise. Do you remember the Allenville defeat in September? It's almost a year ago, I know, but still,
I do.
That stuck in my mind with him, because a lot of people... Say it again, sorry.
I was at that. I was present at that.
Yes, so you were. But I remember a lot of people at that point saying, like, the reason Celtic kind of ended up not doing much that day was because they never had a destroyer in the middle. But McCarthy played in that game, and that's precisely what he was trying to do when he was on. I said at the time it wasn't that at all. It was another play dictator that they missed because McGregor was out. And I think that's another reason that I always say, bite your ear off with, basically, that signing a centre mid with elite athleticism or ball winning ability has to come with technical quality, because they'll get lost. And I think McCarthy does look a bit lost sometimes in that midfield. And maybe I'm being harsh because he's not played from the start a lot, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and I agree with you totally about the fact that he's played for Hamilton, Wigan, Crystal Palace, Everton. They are not ball dominating teams, are they? They're not teams that have the possession of the football for a huge percentage of the games that they play in. So maybe he is suited to a certain way of playing, and under Ange, it's maybe not that certain way that he plays, and Ange's maybe seen that as well, or noticed that. And I think a lot of people are saying it's probably best if Celtic cut their losses on McCarthy and he goes elsewhere. And one of the teams that have been linked with him or mentioned was Sunderland. No, I'm not saying he's going to go, and if and he's not got a future at Celtic, because I still think there's a player of undoubted ability in there with McCarthy, but he's just been really unlucky in terms of Celtic were heading in a different direction, football-wise, philosophy, style-wise, and it's maybe just not suited to his game, and he might get that, as you say, somewhere else. But I think the reports came out yesterday about an impending exit. Whether that happens remains to be seen.
I mean, the Brown Warriors comment here about switching to a double pivot with McCarthy alongside McGregor could work. I actually think Aaron Moy would get that nod before McCarthy for that as well. I think that's kind of your point, Tony, as well. Just that he's just that one further step away from getting game time. I also worry about Yusuke Ideguchi's game time as well, with Aaron Moy being there a wee bit.
And I also think the fact that you saw that Moy was doing the bleep test and he was getting minutes. He's getting minutes to improve his fitness.
That's what it is with Moy.
For no other reason, the manager wants to give him game time ahead of McCarthy and Ideguchi. I think that stands to reason, which is why he's getting Aaron Moy up to speed and playing him as much as he can with cameos here and there before he finally says, right, you're ready to be unleashed for a 90 or a 60, 75, whatever he thinks. But I think that's the Ange Postecoglou's thought process behind that. And again, as we've said there, I think it puts him ahead of those two players that you mentioned, McCarthy and Ideguchi, in that midfield pecking order.
I know. That's exactly where I stand on it as well. I think the fact that he can, I mean, Eddie Gucci can technically cover the 6 and 8 as well.
Yes.
But I think Aaron Moy will be the primary guy to kind of shuffle round wherever needed. I think you've seen it in the Norwich game when he came on.
Yeah.
And it started as an 8 essentially. Or sorry, started as a 6 essentially to take McGregor out of that position. And then when McCarthy came on, funnily enough, Moy moved one forward and was playing as the 8. I don't think you see that the opposite way about. McCarthy doesn't move to the 8. He only comes on for the 6. So I mean, I did start this off by saying that earlier this summer I found a silver lining. Remember, I looked for the silver lining, and I did. I said on here earlier this year that maybe the role that would be maybe built for McCarthy in a way would be in the mould of someone to add a bit of steel to see out a game, like a closer, that kind of game, that kind of role. I don't necessarily see that now that there is the addition of Aaron Moy. But the other thing that maybe kind of gets forgotten about sometimes is that McCarthy actually ticks a homegrown box as well for Europe because he was reared at Hamilton. So whether that'll play into any kind of exit, I think it probably will be considered. But really, I think if there is substance to these reports, then it would probably be fair enough to let him go because of the length of his contract.
Yeah, I think the length of the contract would determine possibly that McCarthy maybe they'll cut their losses and strike some kind of deal and allow him to leave. There's still time in the window to do that, Sean. Still about 3 or 4 weeks still to go.
Oh, plenty of time.
Yeah, and I, like others, I don't think McCarthy will be the only one to be jettisoned if that is the case. Now, we've spoken about others, haven't we? The likes of Ajeti, there's still scope for maybe Julian to possibly move on as well, but I guess that'll come out in the wash in the next few weeks. Maybe guys like Liam Shaw going away again as well, and Mikey Johnson too. So there's still a lot of wheeling and dealing to be done, I think, Sean, before this transfer window closes. I nearly said those horrible words, bang shut, but I said
that will come.
It closes. I'm not saying.
No, I agree with you. I do. I think we've kind of spoke before. The exits now are arguably the primary concern because the majority and the bulk of the arrivals have already arrived, basically. Ange Postecoglou said himself, maybe one or two, but they've got to fit the bill, that kind of thing. I think that will come potentially after a couple leave. And with these things, as I say, especially with the likes of Julian and potentially Ajeti, you're kind of looking at the wage that you'll get off rather than necessarily the transfer fee you'll get in.
Sure.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, I think it's freeing up wages, isn't it, for the likes of to make way for Ajeti when others go. That's the whole point, isn't it? To bring in maybe a couple more before the window shuts. Now, Sean, that's talking about potential McCarthy potentially leaving. John Hartson was also talking yesterday. And he was talking about Matt O'Reilly. Now, you know my thoughts on Matt O'Reilly, and I think that Celtic should just enjoy Matt O'Reilly while he is here. But John Hartson, he was relating it to James Maddison's potential fee with Leicester knocking back in the region of between 40 and 50 million for Maddison, wasn't it, from Newcastle? Something like that. And they keep coming back in. And then he was saying, well, if James Maddison is worth that, then what's Matt O'Reilly worth? I think John Hartson at the moment put a price of 18 million on Matt O'Reilly. My thoughts on these things are probably like yours. A player is only worth what someone is willing to pay for them. And we value Matt O'Reilly very highly as a footballer. So I'm not too perturbed about people putting, ridiculous values on him just now. I'm going to enjoy watching Matt O'Reilly. And this time next season, then you might have to ward off serious competition. But if Matt O'Reilly keeps progressing his career the way he wants, plays in the Champions League group stages for Celtic, which he will this season, manages to get to Qatar for the Danish full international squad, and Celtic win the title again and then play in the Champions League group stages again, then Matt O'Reilly might be perfectly happy to stay at Celtic and keep progressing his career. Nobody knows what the future holds, but the immediate future is Matt O'Reilly's a Celtic player for this season and beyond, and just enjoy him while we can, and what will be will be.
I agree overall, but I'm still going to use it as a jumping off point, Tony, for a wee pub style debate. I think it's essentially just John Hartson saying in his mind Leicester, despite the financial situation that I explained the other week on here, of course, in terms of like having to sell before the buy. It's just Hartson saying that they would have to be prepared to pay big money for O'Reilly, and I'm sure that's a sentiment that we all agree with, even though, like, whether from an objective point of view or whether from a Celtic fan point of view, you don't want him at the door because he's a great player, right? But Hartson spitballs 18 million as a figure, as you said. I actually think, given that I've already premised this with it's a pub style debate, Tony, and nothing should be taken that seriously, I think that's quite low. Remember now, I felt as if I was far more realistic about a potential Josip Juranovic price tag than a lot of people seem to be. I said at the time that for all the talk of 15, 20 million, that I thought anything over 10 gets Celtic's ears perking up. So I'm not prone to exaggeration with this, I don't think. But do you remember why I said all that about Juranovic though? All those boxes. I like a checklist as much as I like a depth chart these days, by the way.
You said he was older, wasn't he? He was 27.
Yeah.
You said it probably the last big contract that he would earn. So I remember all that kind of stuff.
Like there was certain things in both columns in terms of if you were getting into transfer negotiations. Juranovic is a solid international starter, 4 seasons left in his contract, but on the other hand, he's about to turn 27. I'd argue he's not really shown his best at Celtic yet, mostly, and he's probably all the player he's ever going to be. Now, like, remember with Jeremy Frimpong, because he was a right back as well, so kind of talked about him at that point. There was no sweet combination of age and potential, but O'Reilly ticks literally every one of those boxes except being an international regular, and I think we both think that will come fairly soon with the Champions League and then potentially going to Qatar. So you've got age, potential, contract length, so you can ask for a bigger fee or that kind of thing. He also ticks the added box of being homegrown for an English team if they've got eyes on European involvement, Tony. Yeah. So basically, I know I've said it's a pub debate and all that, but I've said it before. I'll probably say it again a few times. If O'Reilly goes, I think it's going to be for a Scottish record fee.
Yeah, and you obviously add the caveat of you like to call the English Premier League tax as well.
Yes.
Which players just automatically take an overinflated price or overinflated price.
Yeah, so, just do it. I mean, the Bundesliga teams have made all sorts of over the years. Just saying, it's an English team, right? Add another 5 mil. Like it's a well trodden path.
I don't disagree with you about Matt O'Reilly. My thoughts on Matt O'Reilly are, I think that he's a wonderfully gifted footballer, and as I said earlier, you enjoy wonderfully gifted footballers at your club. You don't try and sell them straight away. You just know the nature of the business that the vultures will circle when the time is right. But Matt O'Reilly is a Celtic player, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, how he does progress this season in the Celtic jersey in the Champions League. I'm desperate to see him book a place to the Qatar World Cup and book a seat in the Danish national team, because I want to see him playing at those competitions as well. The manager will be driving him on to do that. He'll be spurred on by that himself. And I've referenced it a few times, but when we spoke to him after Dundee United game, they were just like, he wasn't happy. He just content himself with saying, you're in the Champions League, and he was like, I know, but I want to win. I want to compete in the Champions League, and I loved that. He was thinking ahead. And I've said before, it was as if it was the manager talking, right? That's one.
I know. How much have we spoke about that? You can hear it through the players in the press conferences. You can hear it after matches and stuff. It's those messages getting ingrained.
And good footballers will always attract attention. They will always attract monetary bids. That's the world that we live in. And Celtic, when it comes to that, can't compete with the riches of the Bundesliga or the English Premier League. So I make up my mind that these guys, whatever, but as long as they give their all for the club, and Matt O'Reilly's happy, and for a 21-year-old, he really does, he has a great future ahead of him, and that immediate future's at Celtic. So I think we should just enjoy Matt O'Reilly and not put any pressure or price tags on him or whatever. Just see where he can take his career.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. What do you think of this? Brown Warrior, Ange won't put up with the buy to sell policy of what Brown Warrior calls law elbow. I think that's potentially a wee bit foolish, maybe, Tory. I think the club will sell if there's a good bid for any player. Really, I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, every player's got their price. I know that, but well, until somebody comes forward with something that Celtic are willing to get round the table for, then so be it.
Yep.
You know, I'm just going to enjoy him, and if someone comes in with that mind-boggling sum of money and it's a Scottish record, then of course you're going to have to look at it, aren't you? It's human nature.
To play devil's advocate, Tony, even though I'm playing it with myself, really, after what I've just said about the Scottish record fee, I suppose the only thing I can see, genuinely the only thing I can see in the arguments against Colin, in terms of like that kind of thing, Scottish transfer record fee, is that Kieran Tierney's obviously got the Scottish transfer record just now. You could argue there's no Tierney level of consistency of excellence yet, if you know what I mean, because O'Reilly's only been at Celtic for 6 months or so. But already, I think this summer, Scottish football has seen that the transfer of Calvin Bassey to Ajax for big money, and that was essentially based on around that length of performance time, wasn't it? So
yeah.
The only argument against my own assertion I can see is the kind of length of time that he's been here in that level of performance. Because as I say, Kieran Tierney's the benchmark. And he was obviously a youth product and therefore had the benefit of coming right through and being here for a few years. Matt O'Reilly, you would think, or you would hope, and I'm sure plenty of people in the comments will hope he is there the length of time that Kieran Tierney was. But as I say, it's just a pub style debate. We like it occasionally, Tony, like to spitball a wee bit.
Very much so, yeah. Listen, I rate Matt O'Reilly highly. So I think clubs rate Matt O'Reilly highly. Potential suitors will rate him highly. It is one of those things when you have good footballers, so that's what happens. They'll attract attention.
Jerry Coyle's put in a comment here, Tony. He's appreciating you. He says, Tony, we're just going to enjoy you until the 9 snaps you up.
I don't know if that's complimentary or not. You know what I mean?
Well, just for the viewers that we've got that don't stay in Scotland, because that's a Scottish programme. It's a BBC Scotland programme, isn't it? It's what would you call it? Like a topical programme?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
but I want to state
over my dead body, they're poaching you, Tony.
I want to state here and now that the Celtic Way is the only pod I've ever wanted to appear on. I'm happy here. There's no truth in any rumours linking me to the 9 or anywhere else for that matter. I'm perfectly happy here, and I just want to concentrate on my football and talking football, pub debates, you name it. There you go.
Plus, I've got you on a Jim McLean style 9-year contract. So.
Just the 9. I thought it was 25. There you go. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that Tony on the 9. Indeed, yes. But no,
everybody's trying to sell you off, Tony.
What have I done wrong? What did I do wrong? There you go. There you go. Everyone has their price, Tony. Indeed, yeah. Well, we're talking about that even Matt O'Reilly has his price, but I always think that these things are great conversation starters, Sean, as you say. We do like a pub debate and we like to get other people's thoughts on these matters because you can't ignore them. It's what people are talking about.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Pub debates are the spice of life, I think. I think as long as we, and I think everybody on here watching knows it, we premise it by we're not trying to say, right, Leicester are bidding for him tomorrow, like this is what they should bid. Just a wee pub style debate. Occasionally it's good for the soul, I think.
Very much so. Pete McGee asked the most important question though. All the more so. And the one above, there's been a bid for the wardrobe, Sean, 3 million lira. Which is a bit too bob, I think you'll find.
Michael McDonald getting worried there. Is Tony being poached?
Oh, no, kidding. My feet are firmly planted on the ground in this room, as you can see. Now, we enjoy this, Sean, don't we? It's all good knockabout stuff. I mean, we'll continue to build up to the Ross County game later on in the week, or from tomorrow onwards. But, we look forward to that, Sean. Second game of the season after Saturday's 2-0 win.
Difficult game against a team that I think, I'll get into this obviously the next couple of days, but a difficult game against a team I think a few people are underrating, actually.
Yeah, and a venue where one of the most pivotal moments of last season came
Correct.
from, with
Correct.
Tony Ralston's header, and I don't think any Celtic supporter will forget that moment in a long time, the 97th minute goal and the rush of adrenaline that you got from that. And maybe for the first time during last season, you got the thought that Celtic could win the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. There's also the kind of, you'll see the word dress rehearsal being used because there's a cup game up in Dingwall as well in a couple of weeks, but ultimately I think both are just as important.
Oh, very much so, yeah, indeed. I like Jerry's comment there. Tony prefers the 10 over the 9. Well, Haggerty 10 is an homage to my favourite player, and you won't be surprised to find out that it's Diego Armando Maradona. So there you go. Yes, Haggerty 10, indeed. Not that I was anything like him, compared to Maradona. I was red rotten, Sean, but there you go. You know what I mean? But hey,
most people would be
I
considered
think
that.
you try and aspire, don't you? You still.
I'm just going to throw this up before we go, just because it's in relation to a piece that you wrote on the website yesterday in tribute to John Yogi Hughes. Sean McCarthy saying, statue of every lesbian line outside Celtic Park is a must. Now, you mentioned this on the briefing yesterday because I was watching you and Alison.
I did.
But you actually did, just to draw people's attention, I'll put the link in as well. You actually wrote a piece in tribute to Yogi, but also talking about the kind of need to maybe not just have the stand named after them, but actually have them immortalised in bronze or whatever material it is.
I mentioned them all, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Jock Stein, Sean Fallon, the 11 Lisbon Lions, Charlie Gallagher, Willie O'Neill, John Hughes,
Nearly Mockin,
Fallon, and Joe McBride. I mentioned them all. Everybody who was part of that squad that played a part in that, I think they should all be immortalised in the statue, not just the 11. Because lots of people played a part in that, and not so much that they've been airbrushed, but I think they should all be recognised because they were a band of brothers, and they did something that's since not been achieved by any Scottish team.
Yeah,
the best Scottish club side bar none, and I do think that they deserve recognition for that. Everybody that played their part.
They're up there with one of the best club sides ever, not just Scottish. I know you agree with that, but it's I think it's there's more than a few comments saying totally agree and stuff.
I think
they've obviously got the stands dedicated to the Lisbon Lions, but I do get where you're coming from. Make sure that the additional the coaching staff, Nearly Mockin, Sean Fallon, Jock Stein obviously has one already.
Can you imagine, Sean, going round to the Lisbon or going into the Lisbon Lions stands and there's a statue of all the guys before you go in or near the stand? I mean, I think that would be absolutely wonderful. I know that various people have got their statues outside the main door in the Celtic way, but I think near or as closest to the Lisbon Lions stands as you can. I think that'd be a fine epitaph.
Is what Pete McGee saying, a group statue like a squad photo? Is that the kind of thing you?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there must be a photo of them all. At the start of the 66-67 season, because I know there's that photo of the 11 Lisbon Lions in Jock Stein, which a lot of people say get a statue of that, but I would prefer it to be them all. Everybody that played a part. Just my own preference.
No, I get what you mean. You'd need to Photoshop in Willie Wallace at that point because he joined halfway through, didn't he? But no, I agree with you. I think it's a fair shout. And as I say, the Lisbon Lions as a collective have got the stand named after them. Jock Stein's obviously got his own stand and his own statue. Billy McNeil's got the statue as well, and obviously Jinky has as well. But I do see your point, and almost I think there's a sentiment, and Alison mentioned it yesterday, that Martin O'Neill's era kind of brought in the kind of recognise them a wee bit more.
Yeah.
Saying that, but also the wider squad. I definitely get what you mean.
Yeah, I just think it's long overdue. Personally, I mean, and I say I kind of premised it that all Celtic supporters would probably agree with the sentiment.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree. But I actually think the club seem to do a really good job these days in making sure that the kind of wider squad are always honoured and always mentioned and stuff. But I do get your point, and I think given that they've got the Celtic way, as in not us, as in the actual walkway, they've got the potential to do really whatever they want with that in terms of statues and honouring other legends and different things. So yeah. And
I know it would cost a lot of money, and I know it would, depending on what you chose to do it, but I think
I don't think Celtic are short of a few bob, Tony. So.
I don't think Celtic are short of a few bob, but I think if it came to it, the fans would fund something like that too. I think if you canvassed their opinion, they would be only too happy to contribute towards it, because I think it's important to them. And I made a point in the article yesterday of saying, because there's not too many of them left, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was my main thrust of, you know, because another member, a celebrated member of the Celtic family had passed away, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I referenced a song by the Pogues as well, and just sort of saying year after year the numbers get fewer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's
I think
that's a poignant aspect to it. You know, that they have to be immortalised in some way. I know everybody has their memories, and you can look at the videos and all that, but I just think something like that would be wonderful. Be a wonderful thing for the Celtic supporters to view every week.
Jim Craig in particular, usually around about May 25th every year, kind of mentions that and says, kind of cracks a wee joke to make it lighthearted and all that about the fact that there's fewer every year, basically. Yeah. But it does get more poignant every year that he makes it, because it is getting fewer. So I definitely get your point, Tony, and I think there's more than several comments basically just totally agree with
you. There you go. And you heard it here first. I'm not going to the 9. All right. So I promise. I think that's a good jumping off point for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you for your comments. Really appreciate that.
Yep.
We always do. We appreciate the community that we've built up here in just over a year that we've been doing the Celtic Way broadcasts. And I draw your attention to the bottom. If you want to join us, add your comments. £1 for a month of full access. You can see the pods, and you can read all the wonderful stuff. You hit that subscribe button and join us. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Sean, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Always top class. And guys, thanks for your comments. Excellent. We shall see you tomorrow, and we'll build up towards the Staggies game, Sean.
Yep. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, guys. Always appreciate your comments.
All right.
Cheers.